emotional. Yeah. So he passed away Sunday. So we buried him. Yeah. So I don't know if you saw the notice on the WhatsApp group. Yeah. So that was him. Yeah. So he passed away Sunday afternoon. We buried him Monday afternoon. Yeah, that's the only new thing that I know that's going on. Yeah, inshallah, I guess we get started. Nazir won't be on today. He's today and next week because Ramadan's coming, so he's got a lot of things he's got to catch up on. inshallah. هذا نحمده ونصلي على رسول النبي الكريم. أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم. بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. الحمد لله رب العالمين. الصلاة والسلام عليك يا سيد المرسلين يا خاتم النبيين يا شفيع المذنبين يا أنيس الغريبين يا رحمة للعالمين صلى الله عليه وعلى آله وسلم. We didn't have class last week. It was the 15th of Sha'ban. So we skipped the class. And the week before, though, we had finished talking about the martyrdom and assassination of Imam Husain AS. And so today we'll start talking about Imam Husain AS before Karbala. And this is in reality a continuation of all those talks that we spoke about Ahlul Bayt, the household of Rasulullah sallallahu alayhi wa sallam. So, before we get specifically into Imam Husain AS, I want to kind of make the connection between him and his brother and their father, or rather the similarities. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala created them special for Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam from Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam. And that's an important point to remember and to keep reminding ourselves of. They aren't just anybody, and they have that special dual status that they aren't just the companions of Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam, but they're also his household, which is a distinction upon a distinction. So when we look at even the births, so Ali radiallahu, as we know, and according to Imam Hakim, this is mutawatir, was born inside of the Kaaba. But when he was born, he didn't open his eyes, and he would not nurse. He would not, drink any milk. So his mother brings him to Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam, or the Rasulullah comes to them, and she hands him to him. And as soon as she hands him to Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam, Ali then opens his eyes. So for all of us, the first thing we saw when we were born was maybe the wall, or the doctor slapping us, or something. The first thing Ali radiallahu anhu saw when he opened his eyes was the beautiful face of Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam. Okay? And the first nourishment he received was the saliva, the blessed saliva of Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam, directly from the tongue of Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam. And we can't even begin to imagine the knowledge, the strength, the authority, all of the things that are being transferred at that time. So when we look at Imam Hasan AS and Imam Husain AS, both of them, the first male to hold them, other than the midwife who delivered them, is Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam. The first nourishment they both receive, just like their father, is the blessed saliva of Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam directly from the tongue of Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam. So, you know, Ali, as we know, grew up in the household of Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam. Imam Husain and Imam Husain AS also grew up in the household of Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam. You know, because with their father, Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam took him in shortly after he's born. He arranged for his, his nursing, and then from the age of 3, after he returns, the bed of Ali is the chest of Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam. Because this is where he would sleep. And again, you know, when we look at the two sons, you know, they, you know, so many narrations where, you know, companions come to the house of Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam. They find Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam, you know, wrapped up in a cloak, and they see something moving from inside of the cloak. And when they realize what it is, it's Imam Husain and Imam Husain AS in the cloak of Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam. You know, they're raised special because they are special. And special here doesn't mean like we think special, oh, you know, that they are raised, you know, like if you look at people today who have power and authority, you know, they raise their children. They don't raise their children, they spoil their children. So these children are growing up without any manners, no feeling for humanity, you know, only selfishness. When we look at the raising of Imam Hassan and Imam Husain alayhi salam, they are raised with manners, and not just any manners, the best of manners. They are raised in conditions of difficulty. Things were not made easy for them. You know, we keep forgetting, you know, when there was no stove being burnt, you know, no firewood being burnt in the house of Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam, as well as the house of the daughter of Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam, for days on end. You know, we hear that, but most of us don't think what that means. That literally means there's no food being cooked. So this whole household goes through that and never complains, including the children. You know, I mean, the children are children, but I mean, see, these days, you know, somebody misses a meal and they're complaining. I remember when I was in Hajj in 2003, you know, the food truck that was supposed to come to our group and, you know, provide us the food, got stuck in traffic late, and it was getting like, you know, midnight. They still hadn't come, so, you know, and people are complaining. Now, what kind of Hajj is this? They can't even get the food here on time. What type of organization is this? I mean, literally. I mean, you're on Hajj. And so this is our condition. You know, and we keep going back to Surah Insan, or Surah Halata, which is Surah number 76 in the Quran. This whole surah is revealed in honor of the household of Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam. You know, and especially when we come to the verses وَيُطْعِمُونَ الطَّعَامَ عَلَى حُبِّهِ مِسْكِينًا وَيَتِيمًا وَأَسِيرًا إِنَّمَا نُطْعِمُكُمْ لِوَجْهِ اللَّهِ لَا نُرِيدُ مِنْكُمْ جَزَاءً وَلَا شُكُورًا. I think this is verse number 9 and 10 or 8 and 9. But if you look at the background to the verses, and we've talked about this many times before, I'm going to go over it again. no food in the house of the daughter of Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam. Ali radiallahu anhu goes out to earn some money to get some food. He earns enough to get a few loaves of bread. They'd all been fasting, including the children, because there wasn't anything to eat. They drank some water, and that was it. So now comes time to break the fast. And right before they break the fast, they knock on the door. Ali then opens the door. It's a miskeen, a beggar, poor person, asking, do you have something to give for the sake of Allah? He comes inside, takes all of the bread, hands it to them, and comes back in. Bibi Fatima salamullah alayha asks what happens. He tells her, she says, good. Alhamdulillah. They drink water, they go to sleep. And sometimes, because hunger pains, the children will be crying, they'd make it seem like they're cooking something so the children fall asleep, with the expectation of maybe something's coming to eat, or ready to eat. Next day, the same thing, except this day when they start to break the fast, they knock on the door, and it's an orphan. Again, the same thing. Third day, it's a captive. Same thing. And so, this is when Jibreel al-Islam comes to Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam and says, Ya Rasulullah, please do something. This is going on in your house. We, the angels, can't even bear this, looking at this. So this is also when these verses, وَيَطْعِمُونَ الطَّعَامَ عَلَى حُبِّهِ, they feed those in need. They feed even though they themselves are in need. Who do they feed? The poor, the beggars, the orphans, and the captives. And then they say that we have done this for the face of Allah, meaning for the pleasure of Allah, and we don't expect anything from you, not even a thank you. We see, and this is literally training for this household. And not just training because Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala sent them trained, but really to show the ummah their status and who they are, so that we might appreciate them. And of course the problem is we don't even know them. So these are the conditions, and this is the way Imam Husain AS and Imam Hassan AS both are raised. Everybody talks about coming and climbing the shoulders of Rasulullah when he's in sajda. But it's mentioned in a way like when children are making noise in the masjid. So then they'll say, oh, see, Imam Hassan and Imam Husain Islam, they climbed on his the shoulders of Rasulullah, Rasulullah didn't do anything. Yeah, but they didn't come and disturb everybody. And not only did they not disturb anybody, they actually benefited the companions by doing this, because normally the imam, the requirements for the imam are that you don't lengthen the ruku or the sajda to such an extent that it becomes a burden upon those behind you, because you have older people, weak people, sick people behind you. Which is why in general the rule is for the imam, keep it to a minimum. So again, those behind you, aren't wondering, okay, when are you going to finish? Okay. The companions, of course, are the companions of Rasulullah, even those who are sick and weak. And they have this desire to make this long sajda behind Rasulullah. And so Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala uses Imam Hassan and Imam Husain Islam to complete that desire. Because this also shows us the status of Imam Hassan and Imam Husain Islam. That for them, the comfort of anybody else can be foregone for their comfort. And when they did this, like Imam Husain AS, he does this. He climbs on the back of Rasulullah while Rasulullah is sajda. And of course, the house of Bibi Fatima salamullah alayha was attached to the masjid. The door opened into the masjid. Just like the door of Rasulullah, his house, opened into the masjid. So their house also, a couple of houses down from his house, attached to the masjid, the door opens into the masjid. And so when he comes in, he climbs on the back of Rasulullah, and the companion of sajda is continuing. Keeps going. And some of the companions get concerned, and they start looking up to make sure, okay, something hasn't happened to Rasulullah. This is so unusual. And when they do this, they realize, Imam Husain AS is on his back. And so, they continue with the sajda. One point here before I continue is, them looking up did not break their salat. Because of whom they're looking at. They're looking at Rasulullah, that doesn't break your salat. So they're looking at him. Their concern is over him. And because of that, they're, even though they're getting up, looking around, looking at him, their salat is still intact. There are narrations that, when Imam Husain AS did this one time, when the companions, they said that they counted 72 Subhana Rabbi al-Ala. They say Subhana Rabbi al-Ala, Subhana Rabbi al-Ala, Subhana Rabbi al-Ala, so 3, 5, whatever. So then, when he did this, and they finally Rasulullah gets up from the sajda, after 72 Subhana Rabbi al-Ala. And that number is significant because how many people left with him to go to Karbala later on? 72. When he had completed his count, completed the number he wanted, he said, okay, now I'll move. Rasulullah gets up, completes the salat, and of course the companions asked him, Ya Rasulullah, why did you lengthen the sajda? And he says that, because Imam Husain AS was on my back and I did not want to disturb him. Which also brings us to a point, because there are people who have written. And there are other people who defend what is written, or rather, they defend the writer of what is written. Even though they might say, okay, well, I don't necessarily agree with that, but they want to defend the writer. And the writer writes that, the question that's asked by this so-called scholar, or to this so-called scholar, by some people, is that, can you think of anything other than Allah in your salat? And, and the question there being implied that if you think of anything other than Allah, does it invalidate your salat? So can you think of anything other than Allah in your salat? And the writer, he says, no, you shouldn't think of anything other than Allah in your salat. Okay. And if he stopped here, because it sounds nice, what he's saying, we just, salat is for Allah and we're just thinking of Allah. But if he stopped here, you could still say, okay, it might not be correct totally, but you could still make the argument, okay, fine, not a big deal. But like most people, he doesn't know when to quit. It's like, the old saying here, quit while you're ahead. He doesn't know when to quit. So he says that, he continues on in this book that he writes, and he continues on and he says that it would be better if you had thought about your crop or your animals or something four-legged, rather than thinking about your sheikh or about Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam in your salat. Because the love of the crop and the animals and whatever wealth, all of this is fleeting, while the love of the sheikh and Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam, this sticks to your heart, which is where it should be. But his thing is, in salat you can't think of anything other than Allah. Amen. Which you start looking at this, and this is a direct insult to Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam. Not even an indirect, a direct insult to the Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam, because he says, it would be better if you thought about all these other things, including four-legged things. And four-legged things, many things come into mind when you think of four-legged things. So it'd be better to think about those than to think about Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam in your salat. And you'll see why I'm talking about this at this moment in a minute. It's interesting. The reality is that you can't make salat without thinking of Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam. And if you have made salat, or if you've gone through the motions of salat, you haven't made salat. If you've gone through the motions of salat without thinking of Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam, you have not made salat. And for various reasons, one of which is in the tashahhud. We all say what? Assalamu alayka ayyuhan nabiyyu. Can you say that without thinking of Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam? No. And then we say what? Allahumma salli ala Muhammad wa ala ali Muhammad. And we even include Ibrahim al-Islam in that durood. كما صليت على إبراهيم وعلى آل إبراهيم إنك حميد مجيد. Now, if you're just, like a tape recorder just going through things in your salat without thinking of anything, yeah, you could go through that and say all of those things, but none of that has any meaning anymore. You can't even make salat without thinking of shaitan. A'udhu billahi minash shaitanir rajim. So just the premise of you can't think of anything other than Allah in your salat. Your focus is on your Lord, whom you are conversing with. But just like any other conversation, when I'm talking to somebody, I'm at the same time thinking about what I'm talking about. So for someone to turn around and make this type of statement, and then for other people to say, to defend him on it, it just shows their disregard for the status of Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam. And Imam Ghazali says, when you say Assalamu alayka ayyuhan nabiyyu, which literally means Salam, O Hazir or Nazir or present, Ayyu is for the one who is present, present Nabi. He says that when you say this, you should understand and you should be contemplating that when you say this, Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam is listening to your salam and responding to it with something better. And then Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam, he says that, make your salat, make your salat the way you see me making salat. He didn't say make your salat the way I make salat, because we can't make salat the way he makes salat. That's an impossibility. He said make it the way you see me making it. So when we are making our salat, our constant focus should be, when I'm standing, I should be thinking I'm standing this way because Rasulullah stood this way. When I'm making sajda, I'm making sajda this way because Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam made sajda this way. If he made sajda some other way, we would be making sajda the other way. Same thing with ruku, the same thing with sitting, same thing with every aspect, every movement of the salat. Again, we are worshipping Allah, but we're doing it in the manner of Rasulullah. So we can't forget the one whose manner we're doing this in. And if we do, then we're not making salat. So here, and the reason I went through that whole thing, here Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam adjusted his salat for Imam Husain AS. And yes, Imam Husain AS is his grandson and all of these other things, but he's still from the ummah of Rasulullah. So if the Prophet can think of the ummati in his salat and it doesn't invalidate his salat, then why can't the ummati think about the Prophet ﷺ in his salat? And not only doesn't it doesn't invalidate the salat, it actually makes the salat better, because now he's focused on how he's supposed to be doing things, how he's supposed to present himself before his Lord, so that his Lord will accept it. And this, we've talked about this before, mentioned it before. If you look at, Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam, he said that the person is closest to Allah in the state of sajda. Right? This is a hadith of Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam, that he is the closest to Allah, that a person is the closest to Allah when he is in the state of sajda. Why? If you look at a person in sajda from the right side, from his right side, if you look at the way if he's making sajda properly, the head represents meen, the arm represents ha, the back represents the meen, the second meen, and then the legs form the dal. Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam. Rasulullah sallallahu is Habibullah, and Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala does not want to see any of us unless we present ourselves to Him as lovers of His Habib, in the condition of His Habib sallallahu alaihi wasallam. So when we, coming back to Imam Husain AS again, so and we've talked about some of this upbringing before, but this is again the household that he grows up in. Then after Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam, because Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam passes, Imam Hassan and Imam Husain al-Islam are 6 and 7. And then 6 months later, their mother passes. They are raised in the house of their father, who, if I look at it from the worldly standpoint, is Chief Justice throughout the Khulfa Rashidin until he himself becomes the Khalifa. He is the one that everybody comes to, when there are problems that they cannot solve. When Abu Bakr has any difficulty, who does he go to? To Ali. When Umar has difficulty, who does he go to? Ali. When Uthman has difficulty, who does he go to? Ali. So they are growing up witnessing this. And of course, before this, they were growing up witnessing the revelation of the Quran. So this is a house, they grew up in the household where the Quran is being revealed. They grew up in the household of the Quran. And now, after the revelation of the Quran, they are growing up in the household of the explanation of the Quran. And we spoke about this before, and this is all review, where, you know, the narration, Abu Sayyid Khudri radiallahu anhu says that, you know, they left, they were all waiting outside of the house of Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam one day, and when he came out, you know, they all joined him, and but one of the laces of his shoes broke, so he hands it to Ali radiallahu anhu to fix it, and Ali radiallahu anhu is, you know, stays behind fixing it while they all move ahead. And then Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam, he makes a statement that there is one amongst you who will do jihad or fight for the correct understanding of the Quran against its forced interpretation, just as I have fought for the revelation of this Quran. And so they all, you know, they looked around and they thought, you know, because Abu Bakr and Umar were amongst them, they asked, they said, Ya Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam, is it Abu Bakr or Umar? Is it one of them? And he says, no. He said, it is the one who is fixing my shoe. So all of them now come to Ali to congratulate him. And when they congratulate him, they said that it was as if, I mean, he had already heard it. You know, the expression on his face was like they're telling him, you know, they're not telling him anything new. He already knew this. So he had already been told this by Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam. So again, they grow up in the household where the understanding and the explanation and the interpretation of the Quran is directly in line with what it's supposed to be, with what Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam brought. And of course, Ali radiallahu anhu is the door to the city of knowledge. He is also the one for whom Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam said that, oh Allah, you know, make truth go whichever way Ali goes. He didn't say make Ali radiallahu anhu go whichever way the truth goes. He says make the truth go whichever way Ali radiallahu anhu goes. So the truth is following Ali. So again, so when Ali radiallahu anhu becomes the Khalifa, both of them are generals within the army of Ali, karramallahu wajh, fighting alongside with their father, fulfilling the mission, you know, whatever missions they are given, and you know, so and understanding that this is the truth. You know, like with us, you know, many times we're questioning, okay, is this right or is this not right? Yeah, they had no doubts when they were doing anything as to what the right path is. That includes when Imam Husain AS handed over the rule to Muawiyah radiallahu anhu, just to safeguard the blood of any single believer. And then, you know, we spoke about how this household was treated when they returned to Medina Munawwara after that. So the year 50 Hijri is when Imam Husain AS is martyred. So you literally have another 10 years before the incident of Karbala. And so for these 10 years, Imam Husain AS will be in Medina Munawwara as the head of the household of Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam. You know, because after Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam, that duty of being the head of this household is passed on to Sayyidina Ali, karramallahu wajh. And after him, he passes it on to his son Imam Hassan alayhi salam. And Ali, he had four khalifas, 2 from the household and 2 from the ummah. And this will be important to remember later on, so I'm going to say it right now so that it'll be easier when I bring it up later, that people will say, oh yeah, you know, they already heard this, inshallah. The 2 of the household, of course, everybody knows, Imam Hassan and Imam Husain AS. The two from the Ummah are Kumail bin Ziyad and Imam Hassan Basri, rahmatullah alayhi. So these two are from the Ummah. The other two, of course, are the sons who are from the household itself. Yeah. So it's important to note here, and again, and I have to keep bringing this up because of all the garbage that you see and is spread, where people talk about, oh, Imam Husain AS was upset when Imam Hassan AS made the treaty, which, as we've talked about before, and I'm not going to go into the details of that, is total nonsense. Imam Husain AS supported whatever decision his brother made. And the decision that the brother made was not made in isolation. That's an important point to note. He made it, and we mentioned this last week, or last time. He made this decision, after taking counsel, which is the sunnah of Rasulullah. Even though Rasulullah did not need any counsel. He receives revelation from Allah. He doesn't need any counsel. But this is what Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has ordered him to do in order to teach us what we need to do. Okay? So, and as his brother, Imam Hassan AS did, for the 10 years that he's in Medina, is that he showed the utmost forbearance, hilm. Forbearance is that in all difficulties, you remain patient and steadfast, and you don't waver from your position. This is not arrogance. It is not stubbornness, because your position is a position of humility, and a position of truth. And so we see all of the difficulties that are laid in front of him, all of these agreements that had been made with him that will be broken, and some of which were broken in front of him. But he still continued to do what he knew was the correct position. Okay? And so for the next 10 years, Imam Husain AS, we will see the same thing from him, is that forbearance. And so because now he is basically taking the flag or taking the banner from his brother and moving forward. Okay? So these are important points to understand, because a lot of people, they try to give the picture of Imam Husain AS as someone who was, eager to bring up issues, and that's why, when Yazid becomes the king, and king is kind of most people think of king as something good, but when Yazid becomes the tyrant king, Imam Husain AS immediately, takes a position of not accepting him. But they don't think about, okay, well, why for the 10 years before this did he not do anything against the rule at that time? Because he's going to fulfill the agreement that was made by his brother. So again, this is also a time, when again, in the khutbah, basically in the khutbah, all the khutbahs of Banu Umayyah, because there are certain parts of the khutbah that were standard. Anybody who was imam had to do this. And one of those standard parts of the khutbah, for many, and then during the time of Muawiyah, or then of course, as we know, that was one of the agreements. that would have to stop. But they compromised on that agreement in the sense that Muawiyah wouldn't do this, but you know, if somebody else did it, he may not be able to stop them. And so, as we've spoken about before, Marwan, of course, every moment he opened his mouth, every opportunity he had would be cursing Ahlul Bayt, cursing Ali, radiallahu anhu. And so Imam Husain AS is still, I mean, that didn't stop just because Imam Husain AS passed away or was martyred. This is continuing on now. You know, when Marwan is the governor of Medina, yeah, he's, you know, every morning, every evening, every Friday khutbah. Anytime he speaks, Eid khutbah or whatever khutbah, this is what he's doing. And so Imam Husain AS, of course, these are, you know, like we mentioned before, Imam Husain AS was banned from coming to the Masjid of Rasulullah because Marwan didn't want the people to get emotional when they see him, and then maybe they revolt against the leadership. And they didn't want to come anyway because what were they going to do except listen to the cursing of their father? And so again, you know, this continues on. What happens in the year 56, Hijri, you know, because you have, you know, if you remember the last agreement, or last of the 5 details that were agreed upon, and some say 6, but the last one of those details of the agreement between Imam Hassan and Imam Hassan al-Islam and Muawiyah was that Muawiyah did not have the authority to name anybody as heir in his place, you know, to become the ruler after him, but that the rule would go back to the Shura, and it was understood that it would go back to Imam Hassan alayhi salam. So now, as we mentioned, you know, when Imam Hassan al-Islam for Yazid is conveniently taken out of the picture. And we talked about this 2 weeks ago, so I won't go into the details about his getting poisoned under the directions of Yazid. Because Yazid, of course, is the son of Muawiyah, and he wants to be the crown prince. But according to the agreement between his father and Imam Hassan al-Islam, his father can't appoint anybody as crown prince, because it will go back to Imam Hassan. But if Imam Hassan is removed from the picture, then that opens the door for him, which is exactly what happens. So, you know, some time passes, but now the question comes up that Muawiyah is getting older. So what happens when he passes away? And so you have some people, including a couple of the companions of the Prophet ﷺ, such as Mughira bin Shu'bah, who make a suggestion to Muawiyah, you know, basically that, look, you know, the agreement was that it would go back to him. He's not in the picture anymore. And so now the concern is that if no one is appointed and accepted as leader before you pass, then there may be another civil war, just like there was a civil war during the time of Ali, between Ali and Muawiyah. Okay, and then that continued on into Imam Hassan alayhi salam, in which, you know, like in Siffin, you have like 10,000 people being killed, which is a lot. And various other battles in which you have, you know, thousands and thousands of people being killed, including many companions of Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam, you know, or those who have knowledge. But as we've mentioned before, if you look at the Battle of Siffin, all of the companions of Badr that fought in that battle fought on the side of Ali radiallahu anhu. So this issue is brought up. Is again, okay, if we don't have a clear leader, then there may be civil war. More likely there will be civil war. And if there is civil war, many people will die. So let's go ahead and appoint somebody and have everybody agree to him. And then that way we can, it'll be a peaceful transition. So after some deliberation, of course, the issue is, again, the agreement states that he does not have the authority to do this. But now the excuse is used, well, the situation has changed. And so that aspect of the agreement no longer is valid. Just like, this is the tendency of most people. The tendency of the vast majority of people is that we try to interpret things or justify things to our benefit. And of course, human nature has not changed. However, for Muawiyah, by doing this, by making this decision to appoint someone as his heir, does not exclude him from being the companion of Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam. Because the companionship of Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam is not based off of any single action. It is based off of seeing a Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam with Iman and then dying on that Iman. It also does not exclude Muawiyah from the statement of Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam where he said that none of my companions will be touched by the fire. And this, of course, is the authority of Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam. Because if none of them did anything that was questionable, then you would say, they're just all pious people. This is the authority of Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam, that even with all of their shortcomings, none of his companions will be touched by the fire. So this should make us appreciate the authority of Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam and the love Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has for him, that he has given him this authority even more. So around the year 56 Hijri, this decision is finalized. And so a message is sent out to all of the governors. Because you have to keep in mind right now that the capital of the state is Damascus. So this is the central authority of the Muslim Empire, Damascus. Okay. Then you have the other states within the empire, which included Iraq, Egypt, Yemen, and there's six major states. Okay. And then you have, of course, Hijaz and the Haramain. And so you have letters that are sent to all of the governors. And all of these governors come out and make these statements. And the statement is that, Yazid has been designated as crown prince, and everybody needs to give loyalty or pledge allegiance to him. Okay. The people of Sham, of course, all of them agreed. Because this is where the headquarters is, this is where, Muawiyah radiallahu anhu is. The people of Iraq refused. The people of Egypt agreed. The people of Yemen you had a large portion that were leaning against, and you had an even larger portion though that were leaning for. And the people of Medina Munawwara, which basically meant Hijaz, so Medina, Mecca, they said, look, we don't agree to this, but we'll do whatever, and they named off certain people, and they said, if they give him allegiance, we will agree. Okay. So when Marwan, but before, the people saying this, when Marwan, he comes, and this is Juma, he gives the khutbah, and this is part of his khutbah. And so you have 5 people who are opposed. And these are these 5 people that if they agree, then all of Hijaz will fall in line. Okay. And if they don't agree, then Hijaz will also not fall into line. Okay. And those 5 were Abdul Rahman bin Abu Bakr, who we're going to come back to. Abdullah ibn Umar, Abdullah ibn Abbas, Abdullah ibn Zubair, radiallahu anhu. So 3 Abdullahs. And, of course, Imam Husain AS. So when the statement is made, Abdul Rahman bin Abu Bakr radiallahu anhu is there. And he immediately objects. And he didn't wait. He immediately objects. And he says that, Muawiyah radiallahu anhu has no right to do this. And these hadiths are in Bukhari. And there aren't just 1 or 2 hadiths. There are a few hadiths in relation to this subject. So Abdul Rahman, this is the son of Abu Bakr radiallahu anhu, the brother of the mother of the believers, Bibi Aisha Siddiqa radiallahu anha. So when he immediately objects, Marwan says that, he makes a statement that, that Muawiyah radiallahu anhu is leading in accordance to the way of Abu Bakr and Umar radiallahu anhu. And what he's implying here is that when Abu Bakr radiallahu anhu was about to pass, he said to the people, he said, choose Umar as your leader. So what a lot of people will try to twist that as is that, see, Abu Bakr radiallahu anhu appointed Umar radiallahu anhu as the leader of the Muslims after him, which is not true. He nominated Umar, and then the Shura agreed to Umar. This is how it worked. Umar radiallahu anhu was not made the Khalifa without the consultation of the Shura. So the Shura said, Abu Bakr radiallahu anhu said, I want him to be the leader of the Muslims after me. And the Shura said, okay, we all agree. So agreement made, and they moved forward. So here, what Marwan is trying to do is trying to say, see, Abu Bakr radiallahu anhu appointed Umar radiallahu anhu, so why can't Muawiyah radiallahu anhu appoint Yazid? Well, Umar radiallahu anhu is not the son of Abu Bakr radiallahu anhu. And again, the appointment isn't, okay, he's your leader, so you all give him allegiance. That's not what was done. He said, I want him to be the leader, you make the Shura. They made the Shura, they said, yes, we accept him as the leader. Then everybody gave him allegiance. Okay. So allegiance was not, because there were areas that were kind of, we don't want to give him allegiance, but then they were forced. And so allegiance was taken by force in this situation as well. So Abu Bakr, or Abdul Rahman bin Abu Bakr, when Marwan makes this statement that, oh, he's acting in accordance with the practices of Abu Bakr and Umar, so Abdul Rahman says, no, this is in accordance with the practice of Qaisar and Qisra, and the Roman and the Persian emperors. This is their way. This is not the way of the Khulfa Rashidin. So when he makes this statement, then Marwan says, oh, arrest him. So Abdul Rahman immediately runs into the house of his sister, the house of Rasulullah, maybe Aisha Siddiqa, because as we mentioned before, even after Rasulullah is buried there, and after her father is buried there, and after Umar is buried there, she continued to live in that house. She simply moved her cot to the wall, to the side, but she continued to live and make salat in that house. And so when he runs into her house, of course, the police can't go in her house because even though they did all of these indecent things, but they also knew that the public would have a certain limit, and going into the house of Bibi Aisha Siddiqa uninvited by force was going to be a line that they felt they could not somehow justify. So Marwan holds back. But this is where Marwan, we spoke about this before, he refers to the verse. He refers to verse 17 of Surah 46, and this is mentioned in the Hadith in Bukhari. And the rough translation of the verse is, but there is one who says to his parents, Fie or woe on you. Do you hold out the promise to me that I shall be raised up, even though generations have passed before me without rising again? And they too seek Allah's aid and rebuke the Son. Woe to thee, have faith, for the promise of Allah is true, but he says, this is nothing but tales of the ancient. So basically I was talking about a son whose parents are inviting him to the straight path, and he said, this is just stories. What are you talking to me about? So Marwan says, this verse was revealed because of Abdul Rahman bin Abu Bakr. This was revealed because of you. This is talking about you, this verse. And so Aisha, when she hears this, because he's yelling from outside, and she hears this, she within the house steps forward, and she says, "Oh Marwan, no verse was revealed regarding the household of Abu Bakr other than those revealed regarding my innocence," which is regarding her, the incident of Ifak when she was wrongly accused. So no verses were revealed, regarding the household of Abu Bakr other than those verses. And then she doesn't stop here though. In Bukhari, nothing else is mentioned. She says what is mentioned is other words were exchanged, but the details of those other words are mentioned in other hadiths. And in the other hadiths, what's mentioned is, and she says, but O Marwan, you are the ones who was cursed by Allah through the lips of Rasulullah when you were still in the loins of your father. You and your father were cursed by Allah through the lips of Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam. Okay. So she says this, and and even if she hadn't said that, I mean, that should show us, his statement itself should show us who he is. He is purposefully misrepresenting the Quran to fit his agenda by claiming that this verse is revealed, for Abdurrahman bin Abu Bakr, when it clearly was not. And he knew it wasn't. But he also knew that many other people there didn't know. And he wasn't expecting Aisha to say anything. But when he did this, she did. Okay? So eventually what happens is that Abdul Rahman in the darkness of the night escapes, because he's, they know where he is. He steps outside, they're going to arrest him. And then torture him and who knows what else. So he sneaks out in the darkness of the night, headed toward Mecca. Because he feels that if he can get to Mecca, then he'll be safe, even from these tyrants. But he is found in a cave, conveniently dead, on the outskirts of Mecca. Which we know what happened. Because later on, Aisha would come to his grave in Mecca. He's buried in Mecca. And she would come and visit his grave there. So I'm going to end here today. But this kind of, again, alludes to the environment that Imam Husain AS is living in. He, as I said, was one of those 5. And he is the one. If he accepts Yazid, everybody else will fall into line. That is his status amongst the believers. Okay. And especially amongst the believers of knowledge. This is the honor that they gave him. And if he accepted him, and Yazid knew this very well too. And everybody in Banu Umayyah understood this point. But, again, these are the 5 that were very openly opposed to this stance that's taken. Abdul Rahman pays for his opposition with his life. And the remaining 4 we will talk about later, inshallah. But people think, again, and the reason I keep bringing this up is because this is something that's so common amongst the Muslims these days, is that, they came to Medina and they just kind of lived very comfortably, and that's not true. It is true Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala gave them a lot of wealth, but then when you look at their households, nothing stayed in the house. Everything was given out to the poor and the needy. You'd have more wealth come in, and as soon as it came in, it was gone. And it wasn't gone because, like today, we spend everything on ourselves. It's gone because they were spending it on the way of Allah. For the pleasure of Allah and His Messenger. Sallallahu alaihi wasallam. Any questions about today or previous stuff? Nobody? Okay, inshallah. Any questions about anything else? Not that I can answer it, but...
I have one, Dr. Ma.
Yes.
You said during the salah, what about if your mind go elsewhere sometimes?
Yeah, that's normal.
I mean, there's still be no salat, I mean?
No. Salat's still valid. Okay, salat is still valid. Your mind might be wandering. Your salat is still valid. Maybe not be the best of salat, but it's still salat, okay? But the thing here is, also for us, and the question is about our minds wandering in salat, okay? So, if you lose something, you start salat and you remember, oh, I know where I put that. Okay?
You might be thinking about the person, or
About person, or about work, or about
time, work, you
Yeah.
know.
Yeah. And before I get to the answer to that, there's a joke that it was at a masjid, and Imam Saab, it's Asr Salat, and when he finishes the Salat, half the people are saying, oh no, you only made 3 rakat, and the other half are saying that, no, it's Isha Salat. So half the people are saying you only made 3 rakat, and the other people are saying, no, you made 4 rakat. And there's this huge dispute going on. No, it was 4, some people say, no, it's 3. And then one man, he stands up, he said, look, I have no doubt it was only 3. And they asked him, well, how are you so sure? He says, look, I got 4 stores, and in each rakat I finished the accounting for one store. And I'm not done with the 4th store, so I know it's only 3. Okay. But that, unfortunately, is the condition of our salat. Okay? And may Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala accept our salat, even with all of its shortcomings. But the thing is, when our minds wander, if you think about it, it's very hard to think about 2 things at the same time. If I'm talking to you, it's very hard for me to be doing the accounting of my store at the same time. Okay. So the thing is, these thoughts come, but what a lot of us do is we start thinking, oh, I shouldn't be thinking about this, I shouldn't be thinking about this, I shouldn't be thinking about this. Well, if I'm thinking that I shouldn't be thinking about it, I'm thinking about it even more. Okay. So the best thing to do at that situation is to refocus on what you should be thinking about, and if you can refocus there, then that thought automatically leaves. So, when you stand up and say Allahu Akbar and you start reciting, and you realize, oh, I'm thinking about whatever, refocus on you're saying the Surah Fatiha. Even if you don't know the meaning of the words, just understand you're standing before Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, you're doing this because this is the way Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam did this. And, and just focus on the words, on what you're saying. And again, if you can do that, then the other thoughts, and they will come back. This is a constant struggle. It's not like, oh, I got rid of it once and that's it. Those thoughts are going to come back, okay? And then when they do, the same thing, you just have to refocus. And it's just a matter of kind of constantly refocusing. Okay? But again, that doesn't invalidate your salat. It doesn't say, oh, your salat is no good. Even if my mind starts to wander. We just ask Allah with all of our shortcomings and all of our mistakes that He, through His mercy, because of His love for Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam, who is His mercy, may He accept it. Okay? So it's just, this is a common problem for all of us. Every one of us, we have this. And it's just, again, a matter of trying to refocus and to realize that you're doing what you're doing as well. Because some of us, we're thinking about something without even thinking that we're thinking about something. And our mind is just gone. So when we're in salat, we need to understand, and this is why, before we make the salat, we make the intention. And if you look, our forefathers, that even though you don't have to make the intention verbally, but they taught us to make the intention verbally, because it focuses us to listen to what we're saying, or forces us to listen to what we're saying, which helps us refocus. That I'm standing, I'm making, like 2 rakat, Fajr, Fard, to Allah, and, facing the Qibla, and so, we just kind of, so that forces you to focus, okay, and even that thought of why am I facing the Kaaba? Why is the Kaaba our Qibla? Why is the Kaaba our Qibla? Why isn't some other place our Qibla?
The center of the earth?
No.
Because
Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala tells us in the Quran why He made. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala tells us in the Quran why He made the Kaaba our Qibla.
Before it was Baitul Muqaddas.
Yeah, so before it was Jerusalem, which people said that's the center of the earth. Okay? So, you know, and if you look at Jerusalem, it is on the crossroads between Asia, Africa, and Europe. Okay, so you could say it's the center that way. But that's not why, and I'll end with this, inshallah, since time's running out or running short. So, when Islam came, so when Rasulullah is ordered to start to preach, to declare his prophethood, you know, even though he's prophet, you know, before time even begins, but now it's time, okay, let the people know who you are. Okay, so Salat wasn't made fard until the night of Miraj, which is roughly maybe 2 or 3 years before the Hijrah. Okay? It wasn't emphasized or implemented until after the Hijrah. Because in Mecca, of course, you know, if somebody caught you making Salat, you know, you could be tortured or killed. We know the famous story of Umar, when he becomes Muslim, he says, well, we'll make Salat. So Rasulullah, even before the Hijrah, he's making Salat. Okay. But he's making Salat in accordance with the way of Ibrahim a.s. Okay. Which is very similar to the way we make Salat. Okay. The first to make Salat with Rasulullah is Ali, the Rajul. Yeah, okay. So, because again, he's grown up in that household. This is the household he's growing up in. Okay. And there are other things that I could have said, but you know, we've talked about those before, about Ali as far as, you know, the way he comes up. So, now, so the Qibla for the previous nations was Baitul Muqaddas, is Jerusalem, right? Rasulullah ﷺ, you know, like if, you know, he would continue doing things on the way of the previous nations until clear order came for him to change something. Either clear order or other situations. Okay, and so, which also begs the question, how did he know? Because if Jibreel al-Islam came and told him, then that would be part of that revelation of his. How does he know? Because he already knows. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala already has taught him. Okay? So he, in Mecca, is making salat towards the Qibla of Masjid al-Aqsa. But in Mecca, what he does is that he always prays from the side of Rukn Yamani. Because he would come and make salat openly. Okay? And he would always make salat on the side of Rukn Yamani, because what happens then is that the Kaaba is in between him and Masjid al-Aqsa. And this confuses some people because they say, oh, no, see, I heard one clip, this guy talking about, oh no, see, Masjid al-Aqsa is our Awsat Qibla. Our first Qibla was Kaaba, and then later it was changed to Masjid al-Aqsa, and then it was changed back, which is not true. It was Masjid al-Aqsa is our first Qibla, but Rasulullah would always keep the Kaaba when he's in Mecca, Kaaba between him and Masjid al-Aqsa. When he makes Hijrah, now, you know, the Kaaba is behind him and Masjid al-Aqsa is in front of him when he's making salat. Okay. But his desire, which he never verbalized to anyone else, is to make the Kaaba the Qibla because of its connection to Ibrahim a.s. Okay. So, second year of Hijrah, Dhuhr Salat, second Rakat. Okay. So 2-2-2. Second Hijrah, second Salat of the day, second Rakat of that Salat. Rasulullah is leading the salat. And finally, the verse comes. قد نرى تقلب وجهك في السماء فلنولينك قبلة ترضاها فول وجهك شطر المسجد الحرام. So Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says that we see you raising your sight, or your sight going through the heavens. Because Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam, certain, while he's making this salat, Jews made some comment. Jews were passing by and they made the comment of, oh, you know, he says that he's brought this religion, but he's using our Qibla. And he had for a long time desired the Qibla to be the Kaaba. So Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says, فَلَنُوَلِّيَنَّكَ قِبْلَةً قَدْ نَرَى تُقَلَّبَ وَجْهَكَ فِي السَّمَاءِ. That we see you, you know, see your sight roaming through the heavens. You know. And then he says, soon we will change you to the Qibla that tardaha, the Qibla that pleases you, sallallahu alaihi wasallam. And then, and the interesting thing is that it says, the first part of the verse says, soon we will do this. But then the next part of the verse says, do this. So, you know, whatever expression was on the face of Rasulullah when he said soon means, okay, yeah, later on we'll change you. But then the order comes, now do it now. And so they immediately turn. Rasulullah turns, and then 10 of them, as soon as he turns, they see him turn, they turn. They become Ashra Mubashara. And then eventually the rest of them turn. And this is where you have Masjid Qiblatain.
That's how Ashra Mubashara comes?
Yes. The 10 that turned with him became Ashra Mubashara. Okay? So, but the verse tells us why Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala chose this as our Qibla. Because for the pleasure of Rasul, this is the Qibla that pleased Rasulullah. So Allah says, this is for your pleasure. Qiblatan tardaha. The Qibla that pleases you. So if it had pleased him, sallallahu alaihi wasallam, you know, for France to be our Qibla, we would be making salat toward France. Or if it had pleased him for any place else to be our Qibla, Timbuktu, you know, Beijing, whatever. Whatever pleased him, that is what Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says, whatever pleases you, that's your Qibla.
So the reason why he chose Kaaba, because he liked to follow Abraham?
His connection with Ibrahim al-Islam. Ibrahim al-Islam is his forefather, right? And Ibrahim al-Islam built the Kaaba for what? He built the Kaaba as the house of worship for Allah, but he built it as the pulpit for Rasulullah. So when he comes, this will be his pulpit to start preaching from, which it is. So, and we see this, and this is why immediately after they finish the completion of the Kaaba, in the Quran, what do? They make the dua. Ibrahim al-Islam and Ismail al-Islam. Rabbana wabath fihim rasula. Oh Allah, oh our Lord, send that messenger. Go ahead and send him. We got the place ready for him. Now go ahead and send him. And so because of his connection to his forefather Ibrahim al-Islam, and because of the connection of the Kaaba to Ibrahim al-Islam, and the love, this is also, when Rasulullah is making hijrah, when he is leaving Makkah, he makes a dua. And he says, oh Allah, I am leaving the city which I love the most. Now take me to the city which you love the most. Yeah. Because even in the Quran, when Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala swears by Tur Sinin, the places of the other prophets, but when he refers to the place of Rasulullah, he doesn't name a specific place. He says wherever. ومن والتين والزيتون وطور السينين وهذا baladin amin. And this city of peace, meaning your city. So wherever you are, this is why even in the Quran you have Makki surahs and Madni surahs. Not because of where they were revealed, because you have Madni surahs that were revealed in Makkah at Fateh Makkah. But it's wherever Rasulullah SAW resides at the moment. So if his residence is in Medina, it's a Madni surah, regardless of even if it was revealed in Tabuk or wherever else. And if his residence is in Makkah, then it's a Makki surah at the time of revelation, because that's his place. And this is all that connection between Allah and His beloved, sallallahu alaihi wasallam. And for the beloved, the lover is willing to change all the rules. So I've gone over today a little bit, but I'll end here, inshallah. If there are any questions about anything, you write them down so you'll remember and then ask me next week. Inshallah, we'll continue what we left off. Ramadan is coming, so start making preparations for that as well. Inshallah, we will continue like we did last year with the classes even in Ramadan.
I just have one brief question.
Yes.
When Hazrat Abu Bakr desired that Umar should become the next leader,
Yes.
was Hazrat Ali okay with that?
Yes. The question is, when Abu Bakr desired that Umar be the next Khalifa, was Ali okay with that? And the short answer to that is yes. Because Ali is part of the Shura. And even though during the Khilafah of Abu Bakr there was no official position of Chief Justice, he acted in that position. During the Khilafah of Umar, there is an official position of Chief Justice, and he is placed in that official position, which is interesting because from an Islamic perspective, the Chief Justice really has more authority than the leader, because the leader cannot ask the Chief Justice to come in his court, but the Chief Justice can always order the leader to come into his court at any time. And also another aspect of that is when Umar left to go to Jerusalem, and when he left to go to Jerusalem to accept the key of Jerusalem, he didn't leave with an entourage. It was only him and his servant. The two of them left. He places Ali in charge of Medina, which literally meant that he placed Ali in charge of the whole empire. Because, there aren't any cell phones that they can be calling him and saying, okay, what do we do now or anything. They're gone. They are out of touch with everything else that's going around. If Ali had any issues with the Khilafah of Umar, this would be perfect time for him to stage a coup. But again, Ali is Ali. He is not dependent upon the Khilafah to elevate his status.
I just read a few places where it was undesirable to him that.
Yeah, there are people who make that claim. But again, this is like, my father Sheikh used to say, when they said, that the Khilafah was forcibly taken away from him. He said, Ali was not some, weakling. Ali is Asadullah. If he felt something, and this also gets back to Rasulullah saying, Ali is with the truth and the truth is with Ali. Ali is haqq. So if Ali felt that the haqq was being taken away, then he wouldn't have sat idly. Zulfiqar would have come out. Again, Ali is Ali. And that's all, I can't say anything more than that. Ali is Ali, and he's, this.
Yeah, if he would wish to forcefully take something, he had the power.
Yes. Even if the whole world was against him, he still had the power and the authority to be able to do that. Because this is Ali. So, inshallah, any other questions, like I said, write them down. We'll cover them next week. And remind me next week just to start with the questions. That way, if there is anything, we'll cover that and then we'll move forward, inshallah. But may Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala accept us and fill our hearts with His love and the love of His beloved Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam, his family, his companions, and all those whom they love. And may He protect our brothers and sisters that are being oppressed throughout the world, especially in Palestine, and give them strength and give them victory. And may He remove all the oppressors. وصلى الله تعالى على خير خلقه محمد وآله وصحبه أجمعين برحمتك يا أرحم الراحمين. السلام عليكم ورحمة الله وبركاته.